Well, welcome everyone to our masterclass on developing future-ready digital literacy skills. I'm Karen Bonanno and I'm from the Genius School, and I've got a couple of other Genius educators with me who are going to help out on the side. But just by way of introduction, here's myself, Karen Bonanno. I have an education background, mainly in the high school secondary area, and a teacher librarian by profession. And I've been involved with the Genius School for several years now. And also here's Angie. Now, Angie was going to join us, but she's somewhere in the air flying between New Zealand and the United Kingdom. And she's going to be sharing with a group of people things about Genius School. So I'll be your main presenter for this particular broadcast that we've got. What I'd like you to do is in the chat to put in an answer to this question about whether you consider yourself to be digitally literate. And it can just be a yes or no, but we'd love to know, because this is all the focus around what we're going to be presenting, because often people get quite confused in today's modern society. What does it really mean to be digitally literate? And in the information I sent out about the program, the masterclass, mentioned that young people are digital savvy, so they know how to use all their digital devices and tools and apps and everything else. But are they really digitally literate to be able to work in a complex information landscape? So we've got someone saying, I think so. Yep, so that's good. At least we're off to a good start there. What I'm going to do is just share with you what I'll cover during this masterclass. Firstly, why it's important for young people to develop digital literacy skills because of the complexity of the information landscape that we work in, but also too, employers are now beginning to look for early entry people into the workforce, their new employees, to have these skills so that they can really step up and step into the job, because the employer can always teach them the technical skills, but it's very hard in the long term to teach the digital literacy skills. Then the other thing I'm going to look at a little bit further is this concept of being technology literate isn't really the same as being digitally literate. And we'll look at that a little bit more. And then I'm going to give you 5 easy steps whereby you can develop your digital literacy toolkit. And in particular, you can help a young person in your life. Or if you're on this particular masterclass and you're a young person, this is when I want you to grab pen and paper and take some notes, because this is really how you can step up and develop those skills. And then I'll share with you the way that we go about this within the Genius School, particularly as we focus on skilling young people for a very different future that's out there for their particular world of work, even school these days, and also the way that they live. So let's look first of all, why is it important to develop these digital literacy skills and capabilities? As I mentioned, we live in a very complex digital landscape out there, and we've got all sorts of information being presented to us in a digital environment. The very first thing that probably we've heard most about is the concept of fake news. Now, this is presented as news, but it's presented as the truth. But often it can be aiming to damage or discredit an organisation or an individual. And so it can really be this kind of aspect of misinformation. And misinformation is all about false, inaccurate information, which is intended to deceive people. And then it's a little bit different when we talk about disinformation. It's designed purely to actually mislead people. And often we see that in propaganda information. And probably most of you have heard things about clickbait. So this is all these amazing links that you get attracted to. They want you to click through and maybe leave your information and do all sorts of things. And then the big resurgence now is the deep fake videos. And we have lots of people around the world who are globally recognized, who are being used in these deep fake videos. People like Tom Cruise, Barack Obama, Prince William, Prince Harry, even the Queen of England. Her Christmas message that she gave last year, there was a deep fake video about what the Queen really meant to say. And so subsequently what happened, a lot of people in the United Kingdom, of course, were quite upset by this kind of misleading misinformation that was used by using the Queen in these deep fake videos. And then the other aspect is the hoax sites. Now, in Australia, we have all sorts of flora and fauna that can sometimes leave a nasty sting, or they might bite or whatever else. And so there's this particular myth, and it is a myth, it's false information, it's misleading, but there are pages and pages about the drop bear. Now, the drop bear is considered to be a species of koala that's bigger and stronger, and it's got teeth that will bite and leave someone injured. And here's a site, one of the examples of this hoax information. When you look at it, you can kind of think, well, is this real? Because it has scientific names, it's got a reasonably good web link that you can go to, it's got all this information that is there. But what you have to do is to know how to read this information and then how to look at other sites that have similar information to see if this is misleading or if it's not true and it's a hoax site. But the funny part is that this particular Scottish reporter in January in 2020 ended up getting convinced that she had to dress up in this kind of solid armor to protect her from the drop bear. And they just led her on, and she believed this as a reporter to do her news report. And of course, when she found out that this was just a big hoax, that she was being made a fool of course, she wasn't all that happy. But this is the sort of stuff that happens when we aren't really across and aware of what people are saying. And in particular, our young people. A research report that was done by a group called Common Sense looked at the young teenagers and did a survey to find out where did they get their information from that was helping them to make decisions about life, work, everyday events and activities. And what they found was a big percentage of them got it only from social media. So they were only relying on Facebook, Instagram, and for some of them, Twitter, to get the information that they wanted to. Now, I'm sure that you too have been on that scrolling, mad scrolling through your social media feeds to see what's there. And of course, that is where we often find the fake news, the misinformation, the hoax, the clickbait, all of that happening. And our young people might be tech savvy, but they may not be digitally discerning to know what they should be looking at and what is truth and what's misleading. Then we've got them doing things like only relying on YouTube and following the recommendations of celebrities and influencers for their particular news. Then, of course, we come across with 41% are looking at news. And so it's whatever's in their direct news feed, but they feel that that helps them because it's considered news in a news feed, that is the information that they need. And then, of course, 30% at the end only get it from TV. This is kind of a minefield for young people to really know how to navigate through this whole complex digital media landscape that we're faced with, because we are online more and more these days than we are in kind of an analog era of where we would pick up a newspaper to find out the news, or in another format that's of similar like. Then the other part about why it's important for our young people in particular, and even us as adults, to develop digital literacy skills is because an employer will pay you more. This particular organisation is called the Foundation for Young Australians, and they looked at early career job ads over the past 3 years to find out what employers were looking for, what they were advertising, what they were asking for as the criteria for someone to be entering into the workforce. And what they came up with was the findings that wages are going to be higher for young job seekers who've got these particular skills, which they call enterprising, and digital literacy is sitting right there amongst it. Now, often some people think that digital literacy is about the critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, but it's more than that. And as you can see in this area here, the demand is on the increase for anyone who has digital literacy skills and capabilities. So that's going to be something that's going to be in place for a very long time. And of course, it's going to grow exponentially as people work more and more in a digitally connected world. So what do we mean by it? What do we actually mean by being digitally literate? And this is where I'm hoping for those who are saying before, I think I am, I'm not sure, or yes, I definitely am. This is your checkpoint. This is kind of your moment of truth to see, well, are you really digitally literate? This looks firstly at the part that we kind of all know about, that you can use your digital tools and systems and apps. But then we step it up a little bit and we say, well, can you do these sorts of things with those devices, with those apps and systems? Can you very accurately transact all these action words? You know, can you identify information that you need? Can you access it easily? Can you then manage it in a way that's easy for you to be able to know where you can come back to if you want to do some further exploration? Can you integrate it into your own understanding of what you may already know? Are you very good at evaluating it? Are you good at knowing what is misinformation, disinformation, and so forth? Do you have a little toolkit that you use or some strategies that you use to do that? And can you analyze that? Can you consider that you've got this story, but then you've got another story about the same topic, but there's a little bit of difference in the content or the information that's there? And then can you synthesize all of that to actually then ultimately make an informed decision that's going to be maybe a lifelong decision that you're making? Then there's also this aspect here, and this is important for people who are entering into work, is your employer's not going to expect you just to regurgitate something that you found in your searches and then just spit it out in a report in exactly the same way. They're really looking for you to be able to be original, to be creative, to be able to generate new knowledge and new information. And to do that, you have to be fully digitally literate to be able to navigate that space, to then have the confidence to know how to construct your new knowledge. Then, of course, there's how you're going to use the different media channels to then express that information or to share that information. And this then ties in with knowing how to communicate well with others. So you have to know your audience, and you have to know where your audience hangs out, what formats they're interested in receiving information. It might be they're interested in only receiving it via video, or they could be interested in receiving short reports, not a really long information report. So this is really important in what it is to be digitally literate. And then the final thing that you have to do is that you have to be able to reflect on the process. So you don't just do it once, you actually reflect on the whole process, because you're going to be able to get better and better. And as we find information continues to grow, more and more become more and more available, devices change, systems change, you need to be able to reflect on your processes to keep up to speed with that. And the people who are continually in that lifelong learning space are the ones who are going to make a difference when it comes to being someone who's paid more, or who's the person who's finally selected. So really what we're saying is that in all of that, if you see here, technology and use of technology and being able to know how to design, program with technology is only kind of two major top skills that are identified here by the World Economic Forum for the year 2025. There are a lot of other skills, and this is all part of what it means to be digitally literate, that you can be analytical, you can be active in your learning, you know how to problem solve, you know how to ask the right questions, you know how to be a critical thinker. And also you can be creative in the way that you put your information together and you share it in a format that's going to be of use. And also too, in all of this, it's starting to build in skills like resilience and being able to be flexible and respond and adjust. So in summary, I've put here that we really are covering off three things when it comes, particularly for our younger generation. We need them to be engaged in smart learning, and then we also need to have them thinking smarter, and then ultimately doing smarter, knowing how to be able to get their message across to an audience that is not going to be misleading, or it's not going to be fake news. It's going to be useful information that someone else is going to benefit from, that it will have an impact for them. So I'm going to just go now into sharing with you the 5 easy steps. So I'm going to go through this, and then we'll stop for any question time so that you can key your questions into the chat, or even as I go through this, as you think of a question, then pop it into the chat and we'll come back to that in a moment. But the very first thing I want to share with you are these 5 easy steps to develop your digital literacy toolkit, and linking it back into the 3 areas of smart learning, smart thinking, smart doing. The very first one is to be an active learner. Now, this means that you have to really take charge of the way you're going to navigate through the whole complex digital information landscape that you're confronted with. And you become more active and engaged in your learning rather than just passively receiving information. So I'm just doing an overview here, and then I'll dive deep in a moment. So the next step is to be an inquisitive learner. And that means you need to be asking lots of questions, not just saying, oh, well, this looks like it's a good website, or this is seems to be a reputable person who sent this to me. It's really then you asking questions to know whether that information is going to be as accurate and reliable and trustworthy as you need it to be for you then to be able to use it for any decision making or any future learning that you will do. Then the next one is being a discerning consumer. And really that means that you just aren't gullible. You don't just accept whatever you're given, that you actually take the time yourself to dive deeper into what information is there and doing some checking on that before you actually start to use that information. And then when it comes to using the information, you're a responsible and a respectable creator of that information. If you want to have some level of accountability and authenticity in your work, or for a young person, if they want to be responsible in creating the information that they're sharing when it comes to their assessments and their research that they're doing, all of these things are important for them as well. And then, of course, the last one is to be a reflective learner. The only way that you will grow as a learner is if you take the time to reflect on what you've done in a previous activity, and that you reflect not on just the new learning you've gained, but you also reflect on the whole process that you've gone through. So let me dive deep now into each one of these. And at this point, if you haven't been taking notes, I would really encourage you to do that, because I'm going to give you some key strategies to help you to be the active learner, inquisitive, discerning, responsible, and reflective. So let's do the first one, being an active learner. As I said, it means that you're active. So you're actively engaged in those first few layers that I shared with you, where you're identifying, you're analyzing, you're synthesizing, you're checking, you're monitoring, you're managing it. That means that you're an active learner in the information environment that you're working in. You're not just passively receiving the details that are there. It's important for you to set your own intentions. So for a young person in school, if they're just relying on the teacher to be saying, this is why we're doing it and this is what we're going to do, then they may not be motivated as an active learner. Whereas if they set their own intentions for why they're going to undertake research or engage in assignments or engage in learning activities, and engage particularly in using a digital environment, whether it be a database, whether it be a website, whether it be any other place where they will access information, whether it even be social media or YouTube or any other location where they will source the information that they're going to use, it needs to be for them to set their intention. Also to be open to new ways to learn, because it's a case of if we just wait for someone to spoon feed information to us, which is more the passive learner, then we could only receive little tidbits and little crumbs of information rather than really going out there and navigating and actively engaging and navigating the information that we need to be looking at to be able to learn in different ways. Now, we can look at the different ways that we can learn and we blend those all together. So we often will learn visually. We'll see something and then we may be auditory, we'll hear it. We may be more kinesthetic in that we actually want to be active and we want to be writing things down, or we want to get our hands on something so that we can actually get the activity done, whether it be a demonstration or experiment or some activity which requires you to get your hands on and get involved in the task. Or we could be someone who wants to take the time to stop and pause and think before we then progress to the next level. But all the time we need to be open to new ways of learning, because there'll be different ways that information is delivered to us. Then we want to focus on the process and not the content. And this is a key thing. It's not really knowing what you need to learn, but how you need to learn is what an active learner does. So they think about the process of learning. They think about the stages that they will go through. They think about all of the things that they're going to do to maybe use questions to really be inquisitive about what they're doing. And so that brings me to this next one, is being the inquisitive learner. And it's important for an inquisitive learner to use these open-ended questions in all situations and scenarios. Because if they do that, then they can say, you know, what is the intent of this information? What is the purpose of it? What does the author of this information want to impart to me? What information are they sharing? Where did it come from? Has it come from a reputable source? Has it been, you know, when was it published? Is it something that's been in the last couple of years, or is it something that was way back in 2016? So often we see in social media, there'll be like an image that someone shares. And if you really dive deep and look at where that image was posted or when it was originated from, it is often totally out of the context of why that person has posted it on social media at the particular time. So there's all these questions we need to be asking as we're going through the whole process. You know, who published it? How is this information designed to provide me with the relevant details that I need for me to be able to make a decision? So this is the inquisitive learner. So we're building on being active, and by being inquisitive, you can actually really engage then in diving deeper into the information. Then if we go to the next level, we're talking about the discerning consumer. So this is a young person who originally might have just gone to social media, or they might have just gone to a news feed. It's getting them to be discerning. So again, to bring that inquiry, to bring those inquisitive questions to it, but to look at the same news story across a number of different platforms, or to look at the same information across a number of different platforms. So they might go and do a search and find a website that has the information that they believe is useful. But also, if you think about going into Google or DuckDuckGo or Bing or any of those search tools, you can put a search in and you can come up with hundreds of thousands of sites or places where you can go. So it's really, how do you then work out of those hundreds of thousands of sites, which are the best ones for you to look at that are going to give you the information that you need, that is current and relevant, and it's accurate, it comes from a reliable source, it's going to be useful for you, and all of those things. So this is where this concept of lateral thinking, lateral reading comes in, where you go broad to start with, and then you go deep. So you go across a number of different platforms, a number of different information sources, and then you start to look at each of them and use your questions to explore and then identify what is appropriate for you, then manage that information, synthesize it, and then get it to this next stage, which is all about being the responsible creator. Because once you've gone through that stage of identifying, you've put it all together, you've categorized it, you've sifted and sorted out what's relevant, what's not, what's truth, what's misinformation, and you've discarded that. And then you're starting to work out, I'm now stepping into creating something that is going to be of use to the people around me. In fact, you want it to have some impact. You want it to be able to help people to make some decisions. And so here, a responsible creator will go through all of these different stages. First of all, they'll know what their purpose is. In other words, they then set an intention for the purpose of why they're sharing this information. So it could be in a school environment, they're sharing it because it's part of their grades for their final year or their year's assessment. Or if they're an early entry employee, their purpose is to be able to inform a potential customer about the importance of why this information is useful for them to make a decision to buy a new car, to buy some furnishing, whatever it might be. So they know the purpose. They also know their audience, because they know, as a responsible creator, that the information they're sharing has to resonate with the audience. Otherwise, you're going to get the audience that are just going to do the scroll through and not stop and take any notice, or they're going to bypass the particular information source because it's not clear enough that the content is relevant to them as a person who might be seeking that sort of information. Another aspect which is often neglected by those who aren't digitally literate is that they don't respect their sources. So they don't acknowledge where they've got the information from. If they're doing, say, a report or an essay, or they're creating information and sharing it, that they just take and copy it and then claim that it's going to be their own. And of course, you're branching then into what is legal and illegal when it comes to using information that you don't own. So a responsible creator will respect the sources. So if they're doing a report, for example, they will put a quote in from the source, and then they will say who said that, and then acknowledge the source in the document that they have created or in the report that's there. So it's important that people respect the sources that are there. They'll also choose the right medium that's going to be relevant for the audience that they're wanting to create that for. But also they're going to choose the right medium for being able to get their point across. So it's no use them rambling on and on and on if they could say something and get the point across in 2 to 3 minutes, or in 3 or 4 paragraphs, or however the format in 4 or 5 slides. So they're going to be more discerning. They're going to be more responsible in how they start to create and share their information. And then the last point is they're reflective. They don't just stop. They don't just go, oh, good, tick, I've done that assignment, I'm just going to move on to the next thing. They actually stop and reflect. And this is where things like journaling come in handy, because then they can use some of these little bubbles here to reflect on their learning experience. Were they able to use the questions as an inquisitive learner to be able to find the things that they wanted to? Did they manage that process effectively to be able to make sure they covered off on all bases and they got as much information that they were able to work out whether that information is useful, relevant, it's going to be essential for them for the tasks that they had to complete? Did they gain some new knowledge through the exercise that they went through? Did they expand their understanding about something? Did they, ask the right questions? Did they set their own intention, their own learning outcome goal in what they wanted to achieve? And did they actually achieve that? So it's them reflecting on the whole aspect. And, of course, they can reflect on their technology abilities as well. Did they identify that there's some tool that they weren't very good at using that they may get better at, because they can undertake the whole activity in a far more effective and more efficient and smarter way by actually understanding and developing those technologies. So this is where the technology literacy fits in amongst all of the digital literacy as well. So here's what I've covered so far, is why it's important for young people to develop the digital literacy skills, that we're in a very complex information landscape where they need to be able to work out, what is misinformation, disinformation, fake news, clickbait, and so on. But they also need to go beyond just being digital savvy. They need to be able to have those digital literacy skills. And then also I covered off the 5 easy steps, but then how you can actually develop those skills. So what I might do is just check in with the team. I might just grab the chat and bring it over. But if there's any questions that either June or Leonie that people have got in there that you feel I might need to answer at this point.
Karen, we've just been having a bit of a conversation about 6 thinking hats as an example of a tool that can be used to help develop effective questioning. Jervis asked about how to sort of stimulate thinking with students and to start developing their critical thinking. So we just put down about the asking students questions and those sorts of things, and then came up with some resources there around the 6 thinking hats as a good example of a tool that can be expanded in many different ways, right from K through to adulthood as well. So that was sort of the main focus of our discussion.
Okay, great, yeah. So there's lots of tools out there that can be used, and it's really a case of finding one that you really love and you're interested in if you're going to be helping a young person to be able to navigate through all of that as well. So it's important for the adults to, the parents to develop these digital literacy skills, because the more you know, the better you will be at helping a young person to be able to navigate this complex information landscape that we live in these days. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of shift now to a focus for the way that we consider things here from the Genius School. And we always start with beginning with the end in mind. So what is it that we want a young person to achieve by being able to use all of their, or be able to develop those skills, and then how would they use them? And how can we teach those development of skills within the context of learning, not as separate entities, which can happen if you just look at something like the 6 thinking hats as a tool and say, oh, I'm going to teach these things. It's far more powerful when you teach the skills in the context of a learning experience. So for us at Genius School, we focus on real world learning experiences. We get kids to just explore and imagine and work from their curiosity about what is it out there in the world that I would really love to make a difference in, and getting them to work from that point. And then we're more involved in facilitating their learning. So what happens is all these things can happen and have happened with the programs that we've had young people involved in. They do develop their future ready skills because we're teaching those in the context of them exploring a real world issue, whether it be things about climate change or endangered animals or whatever it might be, or mental health issues. They're developing these skills, the critical thinking, the problem solving, all of those things, the analysis and so forth, to be able to navigate their way through to finally get to a point where they will present an end outcome for us, whether it be a multimedia video or whether it be a PowerPoint presentation or whatever it is that they choose that they feel is going to be able to get the message across clearly to people. And so then that's when the personalized learning comes into place, because they're working out what they are most interested in and how they want to work. And again, we're just guiding them on the side, but we're engaging them in this challenge-based learning. So the challenge-based learning is setting them up to explore the problems and come up with a solution to a problem. And often the younger generation is overlooked because they have some amazing ideas of how we could bring about changes within the world that are going to produce a better community, a better world, a better neighborhood, all those sorts of things. And that's where we get them to focus on, being purpose-driven. And we use mainly a tool around getting them to consider one or two or a theme across the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Now, we use it as a springboard. We're not associated with the United Nations, but we use it as a springboard to help them to see that what they're doing does ultimately have a purpose for their learning. And along that way, we're creating these leading learners because they're the ones who are taking charge of their learning, and we're guiding them. And they're embracing then the lifelong learning because they now have the toolkit, this digital literacy future ready toolkit that they can take into all different learning environments as well. Now, one thing that we have happening at Genius School is this particular question. We have people asking us, you're called Genius School, but what do you really mean by the word genius? Is it that you're talking about children who are in the sort of gifted, talented area, or are you talking about certain students who have neurodiverse needs and then they're needing their genius nurtured and created? Well, it's yes to those, and everyone is actually a genius in their own right. And this is where we go right back to the origin of the word genius, way back to the Latin terms and the ancient Roman terms, where they believed that everybody was born with their natural innate personality of your genius. And that what you can do is you nurture it to continue to develop and grow your genius. But what we find within a traditional schooling environment in particular is somewhere along the line, there is this block created where students really aren't encouraged to continue to develop their natural genius. They're kind of standardized learning, standardized testing, and some kids will be getting their unique genius nurtured and guided, and others will, of course, not. Whereas with us, we go right back from the very start, and we have different tools and little self-assessment tools that we can get a young person to complete for them to be able to identify their unique genius, their unique talent and skills and capabilities. And then we use that as the foundation to go through, as I shared before, this real world learning experience. So we start from where they're at to take them through the whole learning environment. And for us, this quote is really important to us because it's this latter part, this involve me and I learn, is far more powerful than just telling them, tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, and then involve me and I learn. And for us, we're involving our young learners all along the way through our programs that we have for the Genius School. So for us in particular, we are engaging our learners in this whole process with every program that they undertake. And we start them off at a foundation, and then we go into a deeper level of learning. And effectively, within 2 weeks, we can have our young people have developed their skills, they've applied their skills, they've produced something that they're proud of, that they really feel confident in. And parents have just been kind of blown out of the water thinking, wow, I didn't think my child could come up with this within 2 weeks. So this is something that we can actually guarantee we deliver in a whole 2-week program. And the program that we have is a micro school called Digital Literacy 5.0 for Teens. And the reason why we've called it that is because it goes beyond being technology literate. It goes well and truly into developing all the different levels and skills and capabilities that they're going to need for their future, and also that they can use straight away wherever they are. And we have 3 classes whereby we're gearing it to each level of understanding and development for those classes. The junior class, the 10 to 13s, then senior, 14 to 17, and then the graduates are the 18 to 24. Because we find that there are a number of young people who go on to college or higher education or university, and they really struggle in that transition because they're so used to being the passive learner at school, not the active learner. So this is crucial for them to be able to then not be struggling with their course requirements, but be able to cope with it and go beyond. So we have our micro school coming up in May. And at that micro school, we cover off on this smart learning, smart thinking, smart doing, and we engage the young learners in helping them to develop all of these different skills through those real life and real world learning experiences. And that way, then they're developing all of the different capabilities that they need for their work, their life, their future. And it's extremely crucial that they develop these. As I said back early in the piece, employers are willing to pay up to 20% more for someone who has these skills. Now, with our program, it's 2 weeks and it's Monday to Friday, and it's usually in like an after school or end of school day for an hour, and on the Monday to Friday. And in that time, we've got their unique learning experiences designed around the self-assessment tool that we get them to do, which identifies their unique strengths and capabilities. And we have educators who are guiding them through and helping them to explore and investigate the real world issue, and then to help them then to put together their own message in the format that they choose that is most relevant for them. So for example, here we had one of our graduates from our program last year who put together this multimedia presentation on mental health and teens. Now, the reason why we let them choose their topic is because it reflects their own passions and unique interests and also their capabilities. So we have multiple topics being explored by our students with occasional overlap, but of course they're bringing their unique perspective to it, or their understanding of the message that they want to get across. So in our last program, we had a number of students who presented all different content, and they came from all different age brackets. So Sam was the one who did the multimedia presentation because she was concerned about the impact the pandemic was having on the mental health of young people. Freya, who lives in the United Kingdom now, at a time, she and her family lived in Uganda, and so they were seeing what was happening with the animals in Uganda who were becoming endangered, like this particular giraffe. And so for her, she put together a slideshow presentation, which was all about what you could do to support this particular Ugandan Save the Animals Foundation that actually provided food and safety and an area where these animals could be taken care of. So that was her particular focus and the impact that she wanted to have. And then we had Sierra, who lives in South America. And for her, she was concerned about the whole traditional model of education. And she felt for herself and her classmates that it was no longer serving them. So her presentation was all about what we need to do to be going forward to make learning more engaging for young people so that they can be more embracing the learning and the digital skills that they will need. And then we had Alex, who at the age of 13, he became a beekeeper. And so for him, his whole interest and passion was built around what it is to be a beekeeper who takes care of the life on the land as his major purpose. And for him, it was about how you handle the whole beekeeping and honey extraction process so that you're not disturbing the bees and you're getting the organic rich honey. So these were 4 different presentations, just to give you an example of how our young people, just during the time of being under our guidance in learning, that they came up with these amazing presentations, which they got to present on the last day to their parents and to their peers and an audience that could really see the changes that they were making. The other thing we've got is that we have a learning resources portal where they go in and they get access to all different tools. So some of those things like Leonie and June were mentioning about the thinking hats, we've got that information there. We've got other tools and templates and other videos, and it suits all the different learning needs. Now, what this means for each individual student, they will have access to this portal after the micro school. So they can go back and use these resources to apply to other learning scenarios. So when we get them to be that reflective learner, this is all part of then, okay, how can I now use these skills I've learned, these tools I've learned how to use, these resources I have access to another learning scenario that I find myself in. We also have more personalised learning small groups as well. So we have our class group, but then we have sessions where we go into smaller learning groups. So this means it becomes more personalised in a smaller group. It gives them the opportunity to ask some questions, and those questions are designed to continue to support their learning over the 2 weeks. And they also get to connect with amazing other young people of their own age who are interested in making a difference, who are interested in learning these skills and also then having an amazing outcome. So for them, it means that they are sharing and learning together. So they're developing these other really important skills where they're collaborating globally. They're developing their interpersonal skills. They're beginning to appreciate all the cultural diversity we have around our world and how they can actually work globally across a project to be able to make a difference. And then we've got, these are our self-assessment tools that we have included in the program. Now, separately, you can purchase those for the $97, but it's included in the program itself. And this is what we get the young people to do before they come, so that we start right from this point where we're identifying their unique strengths and talents. So we have the team dynamics for the young people, but then for the parent or the guardian or the adult who is supporting the child during this program, we have the talent dynamics, which means you get to experience this as well. Now, what this actually means for everybody is that you get to understand how you can learn and lead, communicate and create naturally in any learning or work environment. So they're all the things that are included in our program. So just to give you a summary then, there's the 2 weeks expert guidance with our educators, Monday to Friday for an hour and across 3 different time zones. There's the access to the learning resources environment that they get during the program, but after as well. There's the personalised small groups, and then they're the 2 different tools. Now, all of these are valued at this amount, but this is the value. What we're not expecting you to pay for that, but we're offering you a special offer where you can enroll today. You can enroll your child, and you as a parent, if you're doing that on behalf of your child, you can actually be there as well. And we have that particularly for our junior class and some of our senior students. We have the parents learning alongside them, which means you're getting the skills developed, and then you can continue to support your child in their future learning. So it includes child and parent. Now, of course, with our graduates, they just are happy to be there on their own. And some of our high-end senior students, 17, 18, they're about the same as well. So this is the special offer that we have for you, is an enrolment for $295. So if you have the question, you're asking, well, how do I do that? Well, this is the way that you can do that. And what I'll do is I'll just grab the chat across here, and I'll put a link into the chat so you have it there already. And just a little tip for you, you can actually save this chat. So some of the resources that Leonie or June may have shared with you as we've gone through, if you look at the chat and you see the 3 little dots beside the little smiley face where you're keying things in, if you click there, it should allow you to save the file. So you can save this. So this is the where you can enroll straight away for the $295. And that's guaranteeing then you'll get your child into the program because we do have limited classes. We have altogether like about 10 to 20 students per class. And then, of course, they go into their smaller groups during the process as well. But by having the smaller classes, it does mean that we can actually focus more attention on the young learners as well. Or what you can do is go to this link, and I'll include it in the chat as well. So you can either book a call. So if you might have some more questions that you want to ask somebody, is to actually take the time to talk to our team, and they will be there to explain to you about the program, answer your questions, and help you to make your decision in that whole process. So there are 2 ways that you can be involved or get your child to be involved in the program. And the key message that I guess I want to leave you with at this point, and I'll go back to getting some questions from you, is this particular aspect. If we continue to teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, then we rob them of tomorrow. So if we continue to teach the kids in one particular way that is like a standardized traditional classroom environment, then we rob them of the chance to actually develop their skills and capabilities. So if I go back, let me just see if I can do that. If I can go back to, well, if I can go back to this, might be what people may need to see to be able to work out what their process is going to be. So I just want to check in whether anyone has any questions in relation to the program.
Karen, Jervis just asked whether the program will be run again later this year.
It probably will be run later this year, but we're keen to be filling our class now. And as I said, it's Monday to Friday. If I go to the next slide, this is when it is. It's 3 time zones. So we've got a class at 5 p.m. UK, 5 p.m. Australia time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Standard, which is the US time. So we may do the program later in the year. It just is a matter of timing. But this is a great opportunity to have your child involved now. So I see that you're saying that your son is doing exams in May. So it might work better for you. Yes, for sure. But then also too, sometimes learning some of these skills is also going to be really useful for how they prepare and get themselves ready for exams. So they're actually thinking and working smarter when it comes to trying to remember everything that they're learning for their exams. Anyone else got any questions?
Hi, Karen. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a good point that you've made about his exams. I'll check in with him and find out, because are we saying that UK time, that would be 5 o'clock, 5 p.m?
Yeah, so are you based in the UK?
That's right, yes.
Yeah. So that'd be 5 o'clock. The other thing we do is we record all of the sessions as well. So something we know that life happens and things come up whereby people can't get access to or can't be there for the live sessions. We do have them recorded. We also have a private space forum on our education technology platform, our EdTech platform, where if they miss something, they can look at the recording, but then they can come in and they can ask questions of us and we will answer those. So it's not just kind of class time that we're available. We can support them throughout the whole 2 weeks if they miss one particular program.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed.
So I'll just put those there again, but you've got them in the chat so that you can either enroll straight away, or you've got the chat, you can save that so that you can come back, or you can book a call to have a conversation with any of our team who'll be able to answer any questions that that you might have. But it's important that we take action today to be able to make sure that we're really getting our kids geared up for a future that's going to be very, very different to what we would have been experiencing ourselves. And as I said, employers are really out there. They can teach the technical skills, they can teach the things about what the business is about, but they really need young people who are coming in and having the skills to be able to step straight in and be able to be part of the business, adding value to the business, problem solving, using their critical thinking, and subsequently they're rewarded by being paid extra by having those skills. So an important thing that we say to young people is when they complete their Team Dynamics report, that they use that as part of their digital portfolio for when they might be applying for future jobs, because it's extremely valuable for them to be able to use that. So if there's no further questions, we will say farewell and make sure that you've got some notes that you're going to implement and some of the resources that we've shared. And always feel free to get in contact with us and we'll be able to help you along the way. So thank you for joining us for this particular masterclass. Bye for now.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you.